Okay, so tonight I did a remote viewing technique, which is taught to second quarter students of heart-centered remote viewing, which we teach. And the technique is called scanning the grid. And what you do, if you are an empath, if you are a trained professional empath, which means you control your emotions, theoretically, is that you scan how you emotionally feel when you put yourself in certain parts of the world. And when you put yourself in certain people in certain parts of the world, that can be the next thing you do if you find a disturbance somewhere. I want to talk about this idea of trade routes again because it comes up over and over again. We know that Russia wants new trade routes because they feel boxed in. They feel blocked and boxed in. And one of the trade routes is through the Bering Strait. They're cutting ice and they're trying to get their ships through the Bering Strait into China. So when you stand back and you scan the grid as a remote viewer, what you see is you see the United States becoming boxed in by its enemies in a kind of triangle that does to America what these individuals feel was done to them, in the sense that America will now be surrounded by enemies. So on the opposite side of the Pacific, you'll have China. And then coming in from the north, you'll have Russia. And they'll be coming in, creating this new trade route through into the Bering Strait, meeting up with China. And so America becomes boxed in by two very close hostile enemies that are doing trade. And then they strengthen their relationships and destabilize South America, Cuba, etc. So what happens is that the United States starts to feel boxed in by this trade route that's coming in between Russia and China. This is how it looks to me as the remote viewer. I feel this encroachment on my territory as America and its ally Canada, right? Greenland area. We start to feel this energy encroaching, right? And then we see what's happening in South America, Cuba, and then we start to feel encroaching. We start to feel this encroaching coming up this way. And then the next thing you know, America becomes trapped in this box that's been constructed by Russia and China. That's what they want. And that's what we need to see. And it goes back to this idea of, you don't let me get my trade out, we're not going to let you get yours out. Creating Pacific Coast partners, trying to keep protection so that the trade can move. This is the first vision that I want to share with you, to think about, to help you understand what's going on globally, to help me understand what's going on. The second thing I see when I go into this remote is I go to China and I want to see what's going on in Beijing. I want to see what's going on with Xi. How's he doing? And when I go into that energy, when I hone in, I'm in the war machine, and that makes me nervous because as she, I'm looking at my military options. I am looking to the West, and my focus is my military and strategic options against the West. Now, that makes me nervous. The other thing that makes me nervous is the centralizing of power in China as a remote viewer, if I were to give a report as a remote viewer. The two things that have me concerned about this vision is, number one, they're increasing their military and focusing on possibly first strikes. That's got me concerned. The second thing that has me concerned is the lack of opposition that she has. He's becoming increasingly centralized in his power. So a major power has no stopgaps. It's just all becoming one person. Same with North Korea. So that's concerning. Now I scan away from that, and I want to scan as a remote viewer and see the energy of all of China. And as I move away from Beijing towards Shanghai, which is the economic center, the government center is Beijing, the economic center is Shanghai. This looks like civil war. People are watching structures collapse. I see people not being allowed to get into their apartments, people not being able to get into their homes, frustrations. It's a rising frustration in China, growing movement within, partially organic and partially not. Instability in eastern China, very unstable. South China, Shanghai, economic disasters, right? Because of the housing market, etc. So this crumbling I see of the economic structures, the feeling of the Chinese people, oh my God, we can't take anymore. This centralizing of power over in Beijing that's completely disconnected with what's going on with the people. This is looking like a possible civil war again. That's interesting. Economic collapse, civil war, increasing of military budget. It'll be interesting to see how that plays itself out. The last area I looked at was Israel, and people were concerned about, again, centralizing of power, but in this case, the Knesset and whoever the ruling party is in the Knesset, which is a conservative party right now, Likud, concerned that they're weakening the judicial power so that even the most fascistic policies could theoretically get through. Horrible human rights violations could theoretically get through. And if there's opposition from the judicial, it's not going to have much power. And that is the fear. I see something happening in Israel that looks a lot like what's happening with our DOJ. I see the police coming in. I see Mossad coming in. I see people in government being arrested. Even though all this crazy is going on, I hear from the police and from the intelligence and from their just equivalent of their Justice Department that no man is above the law. And even though all this crazy is happening right now in Israel, people are going to get arrested. People in high positions of government in Israel are going to prison. And some of them will be publicly arrested. And I also see fighting in the Knesset and possibly it really being very intense at this time. But I see the police coming in and I see arrest. All right, I want to thank you for watching this brief evening remote. This was a technique of heart-centered remote viewing called scanning the grid. We teach it if you'd like to take our class on Wednesdays at 6 p.m. If you need me to do a reading for you, you can check out my work by going to my Booksy appointments, which is below this video. If you need me to just shoot a 5-minute inexpensive Wizio for you, one question, that information is also below this video. Thank you all for listening, and we'll see you next time. Good night, everyone. Blessings, and thank you.